104.7 The Cave. KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
Yep, here we are again on a Sunday for Ned Talk, and we're in a unusual position because this is the first time since we've done the show that the Chiefs have a losing record. So you can imagine that the first part of our show is going to be talking about what is wrong with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm Joe Westen. I am the guy that pushes the buttons and controls the faders. The name of the show is Ned Talk, and it's named after, of course, Ned Reynolds. Ned, how are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Across from me is John Oliver. John, how are you?
Doing much better. Ready to talk about this kind of mess we're in.
John was on the DL last week, by the way, so he's back this week. He's recovered, so we're glad to have him back in the studio. Josh Roberts, unusual not to see you wearing an Alabama hat.
Yeah, I know. I have other things to do after this show, so.
Okay, let's get this let's get this post-mortem underway. What happened last week?
I'm more interested in knowing what else you have to do.
What's more important than this? Yeah.
Of course, we all know what it is, folks, but that's beside the point. And it's legal. It's fine.
Oh, yeah. It's legal. Oh, my God. Get your card.
Right.
That's all we're going to say.
My thoughts on the game coming up. I think this is an extremely important game for Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I have really little doubt that the Chiefs are going to win the game. I think they will. They're a better team than Philadelphia. But
Wait a minute. Wait, let's stop right there. You said both things last week.
Yep.
Did I?
Yep.
Yep. Hey, look, it's the Chiefs pregame show. Of course I'm going to say those things. I'm not an idiot. I'm close to being an idiot, but I'm not full bore yet. Anyway, I do think they win, but the significance is, what will Philadelphia do offensively against Kansas City? I think this is a very big test for the Kansas City defense. If they continue in the realm that they have, then I think there's room to worry, because Philadelphia is not a great team. Yeah, Jalen Hurts a good quarterback, and they do play a relatively good offensive game, but it's not like the Cleveland Browns or the Ravens or the Chargers last week. This is a different style, and I'm not sure it's going to be quite as effective. If it is, in my opinion, then we start to worry.
What do you think, John?
As far as I'm concerned, I think I'm going with the Chiefs doing much better this week. I think Andy Reid is a coach who can make adjustments. I think Patrick Mahomes is an individual that can look inward and make adjustments. And I think there'll be some changes that we'll see as far as how they scheme the offense today. The defense is still a question mark, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But I do think this will be kind of a statement game to get them back on track.
What do you think, Josh?
Well, I hope that these two individuals next to me are correct, but I'm worried. I'm worried because watching the Chiefs defense, it's just not there. They're not stopping the run. They're not stopping the pass. The Chargers looked really good against them, which, come on, it's the Chargers. And then, because the problem is, if the Chiefs defense is going to be like this all season, that's scary in and of itself. But then if the offense does what it did last week, 4 turnovers, they're not going to win another game. So I hope they make adjustments, but I'm a little worried.
I think the blame for me on where the Chiefs are at right now at the moment, I think firmly lands on the coaching staff, because I don't think they've made any adjustments going into this season. I think they thought, we'll just put new pieces out there. We'll do the same thing, and we can win. And so far, it's not worked out. Ned?
I'm going to give you guys, and this is not an implication at all, but I'm going to give you a figure that I found to be extremely interesting. Now, keep in mind, it's only the first 3 games of the season, so lots can change. But in those first 3 games, the Chiefs' defense has given up over 7 yards per play to the opposition. That has only happened 2 other times in the NFL in the last decade. And in both cases, it was the New Orleans Saints of 2012 and 2015. In 2012, who was the Saints' defensive coordinator? Steve Spagnuolo. Now, again, I'm not implying anything, but there is maybe a history here of a lack of ability to maybe coordinate some changes. I don't know. That's why I think today's game is so very important. Here you have Nick Sirianni, who is Philadelphia's head coach, a former Chiefs assistant coach, not under Andy Reid. Andy Reid let him go, as a matter of fact, but a former Chiefs assistant nonetheless. Sirianni is a young and up-and-coming coach. He hasn't gotten off to a great start with the Eagles. This is his first year. But if anybody's going to be able to implement any changes in the team, it would be the younger coach and not the old head. That's not a damnation of anybody who's old. Far be it from me to say that. But the fact of the matter remains, I think if there are going to be any changes, it would be on the Eagles side of the Eagles scheme of things. And again, if they are able to gash Kansas City's defense like this, then I think we have a reason to worry, because next week the Buffalo Bills are the competition.
Well, one of the things that disturbed me this week was I heard Eric Bieniemy, if I can speak, say that take the turnovers out and the games are different. You're right. Take the turnovers out and the games are different. But I think that that's a lack of concern for the overall team, that they are not executing offensively. They do not look like the same offensive team that we've seen the last 2 years. They don't seem to be in sync. Their ball protection obviously is not there, and defensively they're not there. This is a team that we could be talking about later in the season as being an 8-8 team, a 9-8 team, because they have a very tough schedule. I mean, I can see them. I will predict that they'll beat the Eagles today, but I can see them losing next week. The Bills, because the Bills are a really good team. John, your thoughts?
You're absolutely right. And what we're seeing right now, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about this, there's got to be an adjustment on both sides of the ball for the Chiefs. When you look back at last week's game, and I'm not someone that says stats always tell the story, but in this case, it's pretty evident when you look. Chris Jones had 2 tackles, 1 solo last week. That's not good. When you look at the total defense, we had 1 sack overall. Herbert had all the time in the world to throw the football. There were some good plays made in the secondary. Matthew and Sorensen had, their usual 6, 7, 8 tackles, but the rest of the defense is lagging. And the thing that was most apparent to me last week, it's not just turnovers. Everybody wants to focus on Edwards-Helaire and the 2 fumbles. That's not the only problem here. When you look at the defense late in the game, they played nervous. There were 2 huge pass interference calls that weren't necessary. The one at the goal line with the shove negated a stop that likely would have put the Chiefs in a winning position. And then the one at the end scared the Chiefs to the point they played back and they lost that football game. End of story. They've got to play smarter.
They are a terrible defensive team.
Yeah,
absolutely. Let's be honest.
I think what John just pointed out, too, is very significant. They are playing scared. They're playing off. They don't want those interference calls.
Right.
There is, and now we'll get into the deep philosophical approach to things here. The National Football League and all of football, in my opinion, needs to make a change in that rule.
Yes.
You've got to give the defenders chances. Now, can you grab a person and hold their arms? Of course not.
No.
But can you jostle a guy? Hell yes, that's part of the game. But yet here these flags are coming out, and there have been a number of calls, thank you, instant replay, in which the calls were totally unnecessary.
Yes.
And there's some that I feel that they completely missed. We saw early in week 1 a shove for the offensive player. Just pushed him right off the ball. What are your thoughts, Josh?
I don't even know what to think anymore. I think this game is very important, like Ned said, because if they can't beat a team like the Eagles, who are pretty down and in a rebuilding phase or whatever, then there is cause for concern. We keep saying it. They haven't made the right adjustments yet. And I feel like on offense, they will get into a decent rhythm of the plays that work for them, getting those short passes to Kelsey or getting the RPOs and all that. And then they get cute. They try to do some trick play for some reason, and that totally derails their drive, and then they're back to square one. So I think they need to just focus on the fundamental stuff. They've got so much talent. We've talked about this so many times. If you can't stop Travis Kelce from catching a pass over the middle, why wouldn't you throw that to him every play?
Of course.
Until it stopped. But they don't do that. So that's a little frustrating for me, too.
One of the things that we talked about over the last show that we did was we talked about the need for somebody to step up in that second receiver position, because when Kelce and Tyreek Hill are covered, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Because Hilaire has not developed into the pass-catching guy that everybody thought he would be when he was signed to the Chiefs, when he was drafted by the Chiefs. And Byron Pringle and McCall Hardman, and neither one stepped up.
Right.
No,
So they signed somebody this week, and it's a guy that hasn't played for 2 years.
Those receivers you just mentioned, Pringle and Hardman, have a penchant for dropping the ball.
Yeah.
That's not to say they're bad receivers, and certainly they're both very quick. But they also have to learn to survive the concussion of a hit and to hold on to things and make the difficult catch. Yes, Josh Gordon comes onto the scene now. He won't play today, but May next week. 30 years old and hasn't played in 2 years. A guy with a lot of talent. My gosh, he led the National Football League with the Cleveland Browns in pass catching, I want to say maybe 2013. 2013, folks, and we're in 2021 now, and the guy has had the 6 suspensions. That's over and above. Hopefully he's learned his lesson. Maybe not. But the fact of the matter remains, is he physically, after these 2 years out of the NFL, and then sporadic prior to that, is he able to maintain a rhythm and understanding of the game? And I think all that plays into what we're going to see.
Let me ask all you guys as we start right now with this roundtable. This move seems to me, my opinion is this was oh crap, we got to do something, move. And I also think it was completely the wrong direction, because they have no defense. So it was like they were saying, well, okay, we just need to outscore everybody. So let's just let's get this guy. He's available.
Joe, I'm going to share your opinion. I absolutely thought this very same thing. Why are they picking a wide receiver when you have this core of wide receivers? There may be something underlying here. They know something or suspect something that we don't, and that the crew that they have now is not capable of, or at least a lesser capability of doing what they had in the past years. And that's very much the case, because they're double and triple teaming Tyreek Hill. The other guys are not stepping forward. Where's Sammy Watkins? He's wearing a Baltimore Ravens uniform. That's where he is. They let him go. All right, he was a big weapon, a key weapon for the Chiefs back then. So you haven't diversified. That's why they picked up Gordon. But I'm in agreement with you. The defense, good Lord, now you don't necessarily have good people available, good as far as talented, but you have bodies. And the bodies that they have now have not responded. I mentioned this on shows last week. I think Chris Jones needs to move back where he was. That's where he was comfortable on the other side of the line. He's being gashed. And here's a guy who's an all-pro. Doesn't have the rhythm. Anybody who's ever been a part of athletics in any way knows that your mindset and your rhythm factor are so very important. Pro football teams, when they're moved from Sunday to Thursday to play a game, that's not a hell of a lot of time to recover from your game. Well, you're also out of your rhythm. The same with baseball players when they come back. You wonder why a pitcher has to have 2 and 3 weeks to get his game back in shape? The rhythm, the total mindset of getting in there, it all figures into it, and I'm not sure this guy has it.
I will tell you that I have not been impressed since we've been doing the show with either Chris Jones or Frank Clark. I do not think that either one of them are the dominant sort of defensive linemen that they're built up to be. I know that they've got all pro pedigree in their background, but I don't see any team afraid of Chris Jones or Frank Clark. I don't see any team that goes, well, we got to know where that guy's at on the field. And those two guys are both, they're pass rushers. They're not run stoppers. And if you can run 7 yards on first down, then you're going to win the football game.
Yes.
You're going to win that game. You're going to win that game. What do you think?
I'm going to disagree to a point on this. Now, as far as the defense is concerned, I'm not defending that by any means. And anybody with the Chiefs organization that wants to sugarcoat what the defense has done, our friend Josh here can help them out with more of what they need to be oblivious to that fact. Now, as far as Josh Gordon's concerned...
Very good, John.
Gordon was available. Don't for one second think that the Chiefs were the only team interested. There were more than a dozen teams that talked to him. The Chiefs were the most attractive option for him. He was interested. At the same time, I don't know that there's much out there right now to upgrade defensively. That's part of the problem. We're in the season. There aren't a lot of guys floating around that aren't on rosters. Gordon is a low risk, possibly high reward pickup. You still try to improve as a team, even if it's not in the area where you have the most need. So I do think it's a good move. If he flames out, what have you lost? You still have the personnel you started the season with. But again, I'm not sugarcoating what's going on with the defense.
What do you think, Josh?
I feel like part of the problem in the NFL is that because of the amount of homework that these players have to do in the offseason, the camps and learning schemes and all that, it's nearly impossible for a player to come in once the season has started and be able to pick all that stuff up immediately. And so I think defense or offense. So there may not be quality players out there on defense, which probably would mean even if they pick somebody up just as a body, how effective could they be just clogging up the holes, I guess. But I don't know. It's a tough situation to be in because the NFL is not one of those sports where you see a lot of in-season trading.
Going to hit you guys with an article that appeared last week. I can't remember the name of the kid who wrote it, but it was in the Arrowhead Addict. And though the Arrowhead Addict is, it's a column that's online and all that. Well, it was a young guy who wrote it, but it was a really interesting column. He said the title of this was Frank Clark's contract needs to be restructured. So I looked at the headline, restructured? Hell, the guy hadn't done anything. Why would restructure? Well, that was the gist of it. Restructured down.
Yes.
They need to take money away because this guy in the article pointed out that his salary cap hit for this year is almost $26 million. Next year, it is over $26 million, and the third year, it is $28 million, and he has done nothing to justify that level of contract. So bring the thing down. I thought, how about this? We have an honest reporter who is seeing through the maze and coming through with a legitimate story.
Interesting, all of it, and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about our Kansas City Chiefs and what we can expect to see from them today as they take on the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll have kickoff for that game at noon. By the way, looking at the standings, Chiefs, last place, AFC West. Did you think you'd say that at the start of the year?
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
I know Chiefs fans are out there screaming at the radio right now. I did mention that the Chiefs are in last place in the AFC West. The Raiders, I know people don't want to hear this, they're 3-0. And come on, guys. We knew John Gruden was going to get that team back together. We knew eventually they were going to get there. And for 3 years, everybody's been making all the jokes about all the money that the Raiders gave him, their move to Las Vegas. But he's a good coach. Whether you want to call him Chucky or whatever, he's a very good coach. He's got a good quarterback. They built a team. And they're playing good football right now.
Yes, they are.
Denver's a surprise to me. They've only given up 26 points in 3 games this season. Now, Josh was talking about how they haven't played anybody, but still, they've taken care of business, and they're 3-0.
True.
And we've seen the Chargers. They very easily could be 3-0 at this point. They lost to Dallas on a game-ending field goal.
Yes.
So, I mean, the Chiefs could honestly be behind 3-0 teams at 1-2 at this point, and they've got a tough road ahead of them. We always talk about football in quarters. They need this win today to go 500 in their first quarter of the season.
You made the point about them being in last place in the standings. That's really, in my opinion, irrelevant this early because it's only 3 games. What is not irrelevant, in my opinion, is the fact that they are also last place in defense.
Yes.
They are the 32nd ranked defensive team. And how many teams are there in the NFL? How about 32, folks?
If they could be the 35th team, they would be.
Yeah, that's
if
true.
they could be. So what do the Chiefs do? I mean, obviously they're facing a team, like Josh said, that's in a rebuilding period, but the Eagles could, I mean, you've seen that defense make average teams look really, really good. We joked, now before you correct me, we joked about Baltimore, and we said, oh, who's Baltimore going to run? And Baltimore destroyed them.
Yes.
Almost 250 yards rushing.
With their 4th and 5th string running backs.
With anybody's ever heard of before. These are guys who were 29 and 30 years old who were coming in there, gotten off the scrap heap. Le'Veon Bell, who was just activated today, didn't even play in the game.
Right.
That's what kind of running back they have. All their others have been injured. Well, the fact of the matter remains that Joe makes a very interesting point. They ran for 251 yards with a makeshift backfield. That's why I'm thinking that today's game is so very significant on the Chiefs' defense. If they give up, if they're gashed by a mediocre Philadelphia team, then there's reason to be concerned. I have a feeling that's not going to happen, but then again, I've had those feelings the last couple of weeks.
Hope springs eternal.
It does.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire has 189 rushing yards in the first 3 games of the season. That's about 60 yards a game. How are you going to protect Patrick Mahomes? How are you going to make any team in the NFL respect your running game if you only rush for about 60 yards a game?
Absolutely.
Now, keep in mind now, Joe, that they never really have had, it's unfair to say never, but their running game has only been marginally better than that because it is a passing offense. That's what Mahomes does. He is a freelance quarterback out there, and the running game, the Edwards-Helaire and whomever else they happen to put in there, are there simply as not necessarily a decoy, but as an objective in their offense to keep the defensive side on the other side of the football off balance. Well, that's always been their scheme. That may be one of the schemes that needs to be changed.
You mentioned hope springs eternal a moment ago, and I'm sure the Chiefs fans are sitting out there going, hey, last year, Spagnuolo's defense, as the season went along, got better. Seemed like the guys bought into the scheme, got better as the season went along. What's frustrating to me is you would think that they would pick up at the same spot. But to me, they just look older.
These are the same guys. It's not like there were a lot of new personnel.
Yeah, and it's not like there was a big scheme change either.
Well, here's a little bit of history again. Back when the Chiefs had their glory years 40 and 50 years ago under Hank Stram and won the Super Bowl, the 1970 Super Bowl for the 1969 season, so that we keep all the mathematics clear. The fact of the matter remains that Hank Stram had this penchant for holding on to his players. He loved those guys. The Buck Buchanans, the Willie Laniers, the D-backs, Johnny Robinson, and people like that. In pro football, because of the level of game, Bill Belichick's theory is the one that I like other than Tom Brady. But he keeps key individuals who can still play, but not because he loves them, but because they can still play the game. With the Chiefs, it was, hey, we had a great history. We want to keep these guys around, and look what happened to them. They quickly deteriorated. That's what I'm hoping has not happened with this team.
Ned, you're our resident Philadelphia expert. Tell us about the Eagles. What are we going to see today from them? What kind of team are they? What do we expect from the Eagles?
When they went to Atlanta and beat the Falcons in the opening game, I thought that's very good. 32-6. Hey, Jalen Hurts is coming into his own. Played San Francisco. Now, the 49ers are a good team.
Good team.
Yes, they are.
Very, very good team. But that game was in Philadelphia where the fans are raucous. Kansas City fans are very loud and raucous. but they are raucous in a different sense from Philadelphia, where batteries aren't thrown at the players.
Sorry, J.D. Drew.
Hey, I'm one of them guys. I'm not to do the throwing, but I'm a Philadelphian. I saw
You're
all
the
of
guy that threw that Duracell at me.
Yeah.
No, but my cousin did.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway, these fans will be loud. They'll be very, very angry because of the really poor performance that Philadelphia had against Dallas on Monday night. They're better than what you saw in the Dallas game. At least I think they are. I like Nick Sirianni as a coach. I think he has a lot of innovative abilities about him. He has shown that in previous assistant coaching positions. He's a very smart guy. He came from, you guys may not be familiar with the school, Mount Union.
Oh, yeah.
It's a D3, and they play a very good level of D3 football. It's also a very high academic institution. He's a product of there. And I think he's only 40 years old. And I think he's going to do some good things with his football team if physically they are able to do that. What kind of a game do I think we'll see from Philadelphia? I think Hurts will try to make it wide open. I think he's going to pick on the defensive backfield a little bit. Then he's going to use the limited running backs that they have, and they're not a real strong running team.
Please don't say that.
Well, that's why I say it is significant in the Chiefs' defense, how much defense they're able to put on this team, because this is not one of the strongest teams they're going to face.
What do you think, John?
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and here's where it can go horribly, horribly wrong for the Chiefs. I am predicting they're going to come out and make a statement today, but here's the other side of the coin. Ned, you hit on it. You know, they don't have a great running back core in Philadelphia, but neither did the Ravens. And on top of that, what did the Ravens have in addition to those running backs? They had a scrambling running quarterback. Jalen Hurts, scrambling running quarterback.
I think we've seen this game.
I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
So
I like the ending.
if Hurts can penetrate, if he can run to the outside, we don't stop and I hate even to use this term, the not up to par running backs, because I know you're familiar with the practice of quarterbacks buying Rolexes for their offensive line.
Absolutely.
The Chiefs may be the first team to ever have opposing running backs buy Rolexes for the defense after the season ends, if this continues. So we're making careers for guys that wouldn't have them.
You're hardcore, John. You are.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
That's
We're just
harsh.
talking about where I live at and what I drive, John. You better be careful on your way home. Josh, what do you think?
Well, who is the starting running back for the Eagles today?
I know.
Well, everybody grabs their phone.
Because he's going to get like 150 yards rushing today, I think.
I think Jalen Hurts will go over 100 today.
Yeah, he very well.
Hurts is their top runner.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
And I think they're going to run the same play that Lamar Jackson, where he just took off with the ball.
They'd be silly not
snapped it and just ran between the center and the guard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, they're not in the category of a Baltimore Ravens. They're just not that good a football team. They're not horrible, but it's not in the same level of offensive line or anything of that nature. They do have a fair offense. Who are they?
The featured running back for the Eagles is Miles Sanders, who is a former Penn State.
Oh, Miles
standout.
Sanders.
He is decent. So, I mean, I don't want to discount.
He was great when he played with the Detroit Lions.
Well,
Come on.
Oh, yeah, Barry Sanders. Sorry.
Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry about
I wish the Chiefs had Barry Sanders even right now.
my gosh, yeah. I think I'd take a shot.
I wish they had Dick Butkus right now.
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
wish they had somebody. I wish there was a statue that they could stick in the middle of the defensive
It's
line.
only 3 games.
It is.
Come
Yeah,
on.
but you've seen teams lose in the first 3 games. You've seen in the first quarter of the season. This is a big thing. This has been a regular topic of the show since we began.
Yeah.
Winning the quarters, and they don't have a chance to win the quarter. They have a chance to only come out with a 500 record. And I think the thing that disturbs me the most about the Chiefs in these games that they play, they've made everybody look really good. And the games have been extremely close. And I think that most of the games for the Chiefs team 2 and 3 years ago, I think they probably would have won the Cleveland game easier. I think they would have won the Baltimore game easier, and I think they would have beat the Chargers easier, but they've made all these games extremely close, and we've talked about this a lot. The only team that beats the Chiefs is the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are really beating themselves.
I don't think, in all honesty, Joe, the Chiefs will ever get blown out of a game. That's not in their scheme of things. They're too high scoring. No, they could have done things a whole lot differently had the game not gotten totally out of reach. But the fact of the matter remains, their offense is so good and have defenses. Come on, you have trouble stopping a high-level, high-powered, unpredictable offense that Kansas City has, unless you are quadrupling your team defense on a Tyreek Hill, which I think most of them are, and then you take Kelsey out of the game, then you may have some success, but that takes about half your team, right?
It really does.
If you think we're depressing, then just hang out, because the Chiefs pregame show will start in about 24 minutes, and there will be no problems in the Chiefs kingdom. I guarantee it when you listen to those guys. It's Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
About 20 minutes away from the start of the pregame show. We're sitting here watching the four-letter network, and if you're a fan of college football on Saturday, they do their college football game day, which is a really well-done show where they go to a campus and they broadcast live from the campus, and cheerleaders and the fans are there with their signs. There's a lot of clever signs out there, and Lee Corso puts on the mascot helmet for who he picks to win. I've often wondered why they didn't do that for the NFL. And today they're at Foxborough for the Jesus of football returning to Foxborough, Tom Brady. So, and in case you didn't know, guys, Bill Belichick will actually suit up today and play against Tom Brady.
He might as well, right?
Yeah, that's what he's going to wear, a very nice cut-up sweatshirt today.
And a leather helmet.
Yeah, so they're on location for that. It's in their backyard, so I guess I have to give them that. But next week they'll be back in the studio. So that's the big story in football besides our story, the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's talk about baseball. Baseball's depressing to me right now. My team trying very hard to lose their way out of a playoff position. They had to win one game, and so far they haven't been able to do it. And Tampa Bay, I think, is really relishing taking the Yankees out of it. Let's go to what people really genuinely care about, which is the Cardinals, and they played extremely good baseball down the stretch.
I'm going to deviate for just a split second because I saw one of the great signs that, and they are clever. This is in the Missouri-Tennessee game yesterday. It was obviously written on the spot right there. It was not not something that the guy thought of. But Missouri's in the process of getting beaten at the time. I think it's 49-10, maybe, or 49-14, or something like that. Whatever the score's way over. And this guy holds up the signs. Bring on Vandy.
Nice.
I thought this is so clever. The Cardinals are a very interesting baseball team. Of course, you're making a lot out of having won 18 of 20 games, and that's a tremendous streak, 17 in a row. Hey, that is it's not unprecedented, no, but it's certainly of historic proportions. Mm-hmm. Does it set them up for the playoffs? Not in the least. I don't really think that carries through. I think it's the Cardinals' mindset, how they go in. I'm going to tell you guys, I think it's probably the Dodgers are going to play, although that is not solid yet. That's because the Giants lost yesterday and the Dodgers won. It's a one game. If the same thing happens today, they have a tie, play tomorrow. Yep. That skews everything.
Yes, does.
I don't think it's going to happen. We will assume it's the Dodgers who they play, and that'll be on Wednesday, and it'll be Wainwright and Scherzer. Mm-hmm. The Cardinals have a terrific history, a terrific winning history of postseason at Dodger Stadium.
Yes, they do.
You remember Jack Clark's home run in 1985, three-run shot.
Vividly.
And over and above a lot of other games that they have been very successful in doing. That is not necessarily an intimidating circumstance. I don't know what the crowd will be. I assume it'll be a full house. And I'm also assuming it's a night game because it's the one TV game. Each of the wild cards has their TV, one Tuesday, and then that's American League Tuesday, and then Wednesday's the other one. It'll be a primetime game. Wainwright is Wainwright. He's
he
won
is.
17 games this year. The guy's had a marvelous comeback year 3 years ago, ready to run him out of the ballpark, get rid of him, retire him, and he's done a terrific turnaround. Last time I saw a Scherzer pitch was just the other night. He got shelled.
Yeah, he did.
He got hit hard, and if any team's going to hit you hard, it'll be the St. Louis Cardinals. So I think there's every reason to think this will be a fascinating baseball game.
We should point out, too, Wainwright re-upped by the Cardinals.
Yes, he
He'll
did.
be back next year.
He did. One thing I want to say is I know people rode the transaction wagon hard on the moves the Cardinals made at the deadline with Happ and John Lester. Those look a lot better now, don't they, guys? Because they are pros. They are veterans, and we got them to eat innings, and they've done well. Tyler O'Neill's been on fire. One thing for Cardinals fans that I want to point out, and I don't know why I never hear announcers harp on this or fans. Paul Goldschmidt, every year that he has been with the Cardinals, I hear, why did we give this, blankety blank? Why did we get rid of Carson Kelly and Luke Weaver and all of these players to get him? Guys, just watch the games. Paul Goldschmidt does not play well in cold weather. He is somebody who ramps up the first 2 months of the season and then goes ballistic. It has been his MO in Arizona. It's been his MO here. He's a very good player, but don't get down in the dumps when he's batting .230 in April.
And he is not going to have a high average either, but the guy is a winner.
Yes.
He's a key.
But doesn't it get cold in October?
It does. It does.
It isn't necessarily.
Not Missouri anymore. Missouri's the new Arizona, by the way.
Right.
There is a lot to say about what John just said about Goldschmidt and other, especially pitchers, who perform well in the warm weather and not in the cold. And it does get cold in October, depending, of course, on where you're playing. If they were to play deep into the postseason in St. Louis, yes, they're going to be cold games. Heck, I can remember the one. The Detroit Tigers, I think it was in 2006, when the games had to be halted for 3 days when that cold front came through and wind and rain and clouds. And what the hell are we doing playing baseball at this time of the year? Well, hey, the Cardinals went on to win.
That's right.
Keep your finger on that previous button on your remote all day today while you're watching football. Switch back and forth. Here's the storylines. The Dodgers and the Giants, National League. Everything else is sewn up in the National League. The Braves are going. The Milwaukee Brewers are going. The Cardinals are going in the wild card spot. But the Braves and Dodgers, one game separates them. If the Dodgers win and the Dodgers and the Giants. If the Giants lose and the Dodgers win, they end up tied, and there'll be a one-game playoff to decide that. In the American League, it's a little more complicated. Tampa Bay, Chicago, and Houston are in as the division winners, but the wild card is, wild. There's 4 teams for 2 spots, and right now the Yankees and the Red Sox have those 2 spots. Toronto is a game back, and Seattle is a game back right now. So if Boston and New York lose and Toronto and Seattle win, then you have 4 teams for 2 spots still.
Yep.
And I don't know what happens then.
I can tell you what happens. They have games on Monday and Tuesday, and it's a select process that's put together by records and other mathematic formulas in which everybody plays.
Yes.
But you play on different days until you finally get everything resolved. They will have to push part of the American League schedule back a little bit, but they will have playoff games.
So this will be an interesting day in baseball. Interesting day for some managers because there are some guys that are probably looking at possibly losing their jobs today. Aaron Boone, I know, is really on the hot seat, which is disappointing to me because I think he's a good manager. I just think that when you've got a softball team, which the Yankees are, you play streaky baseball.
Absolutely.
You play streaky baseball. That's what you get. You get these, they had a 15-game winning streak earlier in the season, and then you lose 7 because the guys just go cold. And you got a guy that you hear about like Anthony Rizzo, and then you don't hear about him ever again because he's gone cold again. So
my choice for what it's worth for manager of the year in the National League is a guy the Phillies had as their manager, Gabe Kapler, and let him go. He's gone to San Francisco and guys, I promise you, if there's anybody listening to us, you could not name anybody in the San Francisco lineup. I'm being facetious. There are some. Buster Posey and
Brandon Crawford.
Brandon Crawford.
Barry Bonds.
But the
Willie
rest
Mays.
of them you could not. And they are not young. This is not a young team.
God, no.
They have picked up retreads, 34, 33, 32 years old, and everybody's come together. It's like the Washington, back when they were the Redskins, over-the-hill gang, and they've come on and played well.
They've been the best team in
right.
baseball. The two teams that are the best teams in baseball have played quiet all year long, and that's the Giants and that's Tampa Bay.
Absolutely.
They both have played. It's hard to name anybody that plays for Tampa Bay, too, but they've won 100 games. If they win today, they'll be 101-61. Let's hope that they don't win today. But they're the two best teams.
Absolutely.
And they're both good baseball teams to watch.
Oh, my gosh.
Josh, you want to talk about the Cubs at all?
No, it's okay.
We'll give you just a second.
And they
to talk
won
about
last night.
Yeah.
Hey, well, congratulations
They
to the
did beat
Cubs.
the Cardinals last night.
They get the first draft pick in the, and hopefully they're going to take somebody from Alabama to play for them.
I hope so.
All right, we'll be back with our predictions in just a minute. It's Ned Talk on 104.7, The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
Well, before the show started today, Mr. Reynolds said I couldn't pick a game that's already been played. You and your rules.
I want to hear what your pick. Do you even know any of the games that were played?
Yeah. I've got it up in front of me. I'm 2-1 on this season. You guys are all 1-2. My theory going into the season was pick against the Chiefs to help them. That didn't work out because Baltimore won. So last week I went to picking games that were already played, and I won that. So I'm 2-1, and you guys have stuck with picking the Chiefs. So you're all 1-2 homers. That's all I've got to say, homers. So it is our time to pick our player of the week from last week, by the way. It's brought to you by Morrison, Webster, and Carlton. And let's start with you, Mr. Reynolds. Who
I
did
will
you
pick Travis Kelce. Let
just replay this all over
Does
and
it
over
necessarily have to be a Chief?
No, you can pick anybody you want. It could be a baseball player if you want. Could be a track star, anything.
Tyler O'Neill.
I was going to say, that's who
Tyler
I would
O'Neill's
pick.
carried the Cardinals here the last 2 weeks, so I'll pick him as player of the week.
Okay, who do you pick?
Who?
John?
I'll actually go Justin Herbert for last week. He looked fantastic.
All right, what about you, Josh? Nick Saban?
Nick Saban. There you go. Why not?
You pick Nick Saban?
Sure.
He's your player of the
He's
week?
my player of the week.
All right, I picked Travis Kelce. You can just rerun this every week if you pick the Chiefs and go Travis Kelce, Travis Kelce,
If you make
Travis
me pick
Kelce.
a Chief, it'll be Travis Kelce.
Yeah, Travis Kelce. It's certainly not going to be on anybody on the defensive line.
No.
It's not Chris Jones or Frank Clark or any of those other big names.
Did you see, though, before the game today, Spagnuolo gave all the Chiefs defensive linemen capes so they could go Olay.
Oh my gosh!
As they run by. Okay, let's do our picks for the game today. Again, Ned is making me actually pick the game today. Ned, who do you got? You can't pick. Are you going to pick your home Eagles?
Oh no,
Ned's from Philly, by the way.
I bleed the green and white, but of course that was 50 and 60 and 70 years ago. I did that, but no, I realistically have to go with the Chiefs. I think man for man, a better team. Again, I think it's significant in how much yardage they give up to Philadelphia, but I think they'll outscore Philadelphia. It may not be quite that high a scoring game, however. I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win the game 30-17.
Okay. What about you, John?
I made a prediction earlier in the week, and I'm going to stick with it. 37-14 is where I think this game ends up. I think the Chiefs will be dominant. It could go the other way, though. We looked at the other scenario, but I am going to stick with 37-14 Chiefs.
Okay. What about you, Josh?
I'm going to be the pessimist here and say that the Eagles squeak out a 30-28 win.
Wow.
Over the Chiefs because the Chiefs can't stop the run.
Wow. I'd like to know where Josh works. We'll be able to tell you about that and his schedule a little bit later on. I'm picking the Yankees over the Rays today.
There you go.
Good for you. 7-6. So that's my prediction. No, do I have to pick this game? Do I have to pick the Chiefs
The
game?
answer is yes.
Okay. I'm going to take the Chiefs, and I predict that they win 41-10.
Okay.
That was my prediction today.
Nice.
41 just came into my mind for some reason.
That works.
Anyway, Ned, thank you very much for being here, as always.
My
I appreciate it. The electric car made it here, so we're very happy about that. John, glad to see you back off the DL.
Absolutely.
And, of course, Josh Roberts,
What
making
else?
time to be with us.
What else need to be said?
Next
What?
week, 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock next week, yeah, because we've got a night game as the Chiefs will be taking on the Bills. Get set for the pregame show. Dan Israel, Mitch Holtis, Art Haynes, all coming your way next, right here on 104.7 The Cave.